FINNEAS must be one of the most prolific songwriters of the last 5 years.
Let's fall in love for the night and forget in the morning.
He has achieved great success thanks to the work that he has done for his sister, Billie Eilish.
Don't you know too much already?
We always look up to these kind of producers, and constantly we get obsessed about knowing what their secrets are. However, we usually fail in paying attention to one of the most important things about them. These guys make their decisions based not only on their expertise, but they rely on a crucial skill: their music taste. Music taste is a game changer for everyone who devotes to music. It is built by your likes, your dislikes, your personality, your character, and certainly your life experiences play a very important role in it. In this video, I will show you the techniques that FINNEAS uses to produce, how he approaches writing a song, as well as interesting facts about the music that he's done for him and for his sister, Billie. But before getting there and talk about how FINNEAS uses compression or samples, we're going to talk about him as a person, as a human being. He started to produce when he was 14. Despite his great love for music, one of the deepest fears that FINNEAS had was not being able to have a career in music. That fear was with him for a very long time. And of course, it caused many frustrations when he couldn't get the results that he wanted.
I remember just being really worried that I would never get to have a career in music, and if I'd somehow been able to go back and tell myself that eventually I probably would have just been a happier person, because I was so nervous.
What he always remembers is this time when his mom saw him so frustrated and unsatisfied with what he was doing at the moment, that she advised him to do only little things day by day. This was something that completely changed the way that he approached music. He stopped spending hours and hours enclosed in his bedroom, fighting the song, fighting the lyrics, fighting the production. Instead, he began to do little things day by day. Sometimes an hour, sometimes 2, and sometimes even 10 minutes if he felt it was the right thing to do. This gave him more perspective on what he was doing, and this is the reason why he advises not to be so hard on ourselves.
The importance of just not being hard on yourself when you don't have a good idea. You'll have good ideas later. You can just chill out about them. You don't have to always be making a great song.
He says that you have to accept the ugly truth. We are all going to be very, very, very bad when we start producing, until one day you will be able to translate the sound that you hear in your mind into your song. Before FINNEAS got recognition and success, although I don't like to call it success, I prefer to call it to get where you wanted to get. So before he started to work with the pros, he used to think that they all knew exactly what they were doing in the studio. But once he started to meet them and once he started to work with them, he realized that nobody knew what they were doing.
Before I met professionals, I thought they knew what they were doing. Now I know a bunch of professionals and I'm like, oh, you don't know what you're doing.
But there was one thing that they all have in common. They were all open to experimentation in the search of great results, as well as the hell of a music taste. Up to date, if you have seen him on interviews and masterclasses, you will be able to notice how humble he is.
I don't feel that I'm a master mixer.
I think this is one of the most powerful tools that he can have. He knows exactly what he's capable of doing and what he's not.
I like to say that I'm not actually very good at any one instrument, but I can work my way around all of them, and that can kind of make up for my lack of expertise on one.
That is why, musically speaking, he tends to manage with the skills and the hard work that he has at hand at the moment of writing and producing music. Now you have time to get a coffee, get comfortable, get your notepad if you want, because now it gets more interesting. We are going to nerd out about music.
If we're gonna put that in, let's actually work on it. You know what I mean?
And then my 2 snares and my 4 snares are almost always different.
A lot of the time I'll wash out a kick with like a lot of reverb and then bounce that with a lot of reverb, sort of like modern gating, and then cut the tail so it just goes like.
One of the things that I always try to do in my production is help articulate shifts in certain ways. So I really wanted the moment where the drums break in and the bass breaks in to feel sort of enhanced and accentuated. And
I'm a big preacher of like tweaking a sound. So like if you find a great like stock kick drum and you modify it and you crush it a little bit and you flatten it out and then you boost the like.
People analyze stuff and I'm just like, dude, I just liked it. I just thought it sounded awesome and I put it in that way.
FINNEAS is a minimalist by nature, reason why most of his songs keep that intimacy that we all like. He mainly writes with an instrument, guitar and piano. For instance, the song that he wrote for Justin Bieber, Lonely, he wrote it with a piano at Benny Blanco's studio. They were supposed to write something and Benny was working on his own album at the moment and he wanted a song that Justin Bieber could sing. They met a couple times, they tried to write something and things happened in between and nothing happened the first time, the second time, even the third time. But then fortunately there was a fourth time in which they met and FINNEAS started with a nice chord progression on this piano. And for the chorus he decided to do something completely different from what we are used to hear for a ballad. And I think that gives something very special and unique to that song. And certainly when you hear it you can recognize that there is something from FINNEAS on that song. However, in Bury a Friend, he adventured in a new way of writing, and the result was totally different. But as he says, he wouldn't have gotten that song if it wasn't for that change in the process. He wrote the song with Billie. They wrote it in only 2 days, but it's worth to mention that between day 1 and 2, there were several months in between, mainly because they were touring. So he started with a shuffle beat that he had, then he wrote the hook, the verse, and a couple months later, Billie got home from her dentist appointment. And this is the weird thing. She was very excited because she had recorded this dentist machine.
like that sound.
FINNEAS heard it and found it so cool that somehow he used it as a sample.
And we put it right in Bury a Friend.
I think this is the reason why the song has this odd structure where you don't know where you are, but somehow everything makes sense. Different, but great. This takes us to his production techniques in depth. In his own words, drums are 75% of his songs. He's a strong believer that if you find the right sound for your kick, for your snare, your song is gonna be there. One of his techniques that you can hear in his own songs is that he uses an extra layer in every other snare. This helps the listener to have the perception of hearing something fresh when you don't even hear it, but certainly you feel there is something else there, even if it's just that little detail. Despite the importance and the time that he spends on his drums, he also works very hard on basses. He thinks that if you find the sweet spot for basses, this will help outstand the vocals even more. Because we all know that vocals is his thing, so he makes sure that is plenty of room for them in the song. How does he make his vocals to sit so well in the mix though? This is really something. And here's the trick. He builds everything on the vocals. Everything. Every little sound that he uses in his production is thought to outstand the vocals. He seems to have become a master in finding what instruments go with certain vocals and what instruments don't. In the case of Billie, for example, he would provide special treatments to pianos, hi-hats, and other bright instruments that would fight Billie's voice. He also loves to use a lot of harmonies. He makes a lot of harmony layers. He pitches vocals a lot.
Or anything, damn.
In this case, for the chorus, there's 4 in unison, which we felt like just really thickened it.
Friend or anything. anything, damn. You think
I
that
got it. 6. There's 6 tracks on the chorus.
friend or anything,
2 of those are whispers.
friend or anything, damn.
And then when we moved into the second chorus,
I'm not your friend or anything, damn. You
which is essentially third up. Actually, I think that's 5th. Friend, friend, friend. Yeah, that's 5th up.
He also does something very interesting. He kind of adds textures and sounds that are very subtle so that you hear that they are more present in the mix and you think it's the vocal chain, but actually it's not. Since we're talking about the vocals, let's talk about gear and vocal chains. In relation to the vocal chain that he uses to record, he now uses a Telefunken 251 going through a Neve amp. But since 99% of us can afford that kind of gear, I'm gonna tell you what he used to have. He used a TLM 103 going through an Apollo interface. That's it. Now, because we all had that sickness called, I need to buy that plugin, I'm gonna tell you something very interesting. He usually works on his vocals with the stock plugins that Logic Pro has. Even today, he uses the stock compressor that Logic has because he knows how to use it. Using a tool that you know really, really, really well is more powerful than using hundreds of tools that you don't even know 5% how to use them. He's a fan of Valhalla reverbs though. I think we all are. What can I conclude from this? I don't need fancy gear or fancy plugins to make a hit record. Something that I'm gonna be repeating all the time, probably in all my videos, because I think it's the truth. It's all about experimentation and also working on the things that you want to be part of your song. Now let's talk about sampling and mixing. He loves to create samples, record weird sounds, but more importantly, he loves to exchange sounds with his friends. He also uses a Tascam recording machine that he carries around. He uses a lot of sounds that he records with his cell phone, just like many of us. Actually, there is a guitar that was recorded with his cell phone in one of his songs. And everybody tends to think that he put a lot of plugins in it, but the guitar sounds the way it sounds just because he recorded it that way.
And I just could not get the acoustic guitar to sound the way that I wanted it to sound. I ended up recording it on my iPhone in my tent green room the day of the Leeds Festival.
Just like when we talk about the dentist sound in Bury a Friend, we can also talk about a sound that he recorded in Australia when he went there.
When you're on a street corner in Australia, you press the button, and then when the walk sign turns on, you hear this like rhythmic sound that I love and that Billie loved, and so we recorded it.
Something that he would use later.
Yeah, the thing people think are hi-hats and bad guys is actually just that.
And now let's talk about mixing. In his own words, he mixes 98% of the song, and 2% is the room that he leaves for his engineer. Something really important to mention about his mixing process is that he never got to a point where he said, okay, I know how to mix. He just kept mixing and mixing and mixing until one day he got the results that he wanted. So if he didn't feel discouraged, you shouldn't either. He advises that you should mix your song as you are producing, because that way you can know if you need something else, if there is room for something else. He advises that you should mix the song that you are producing and not try to sound like somebody else's mix or somebody else's song, because most mixes sound like that because almost everything came from the production. And that's why he also mixes as he goes. As for the panning effects that he uses, it's much simpler than we would all think. He doesn't automate a lot of effects. What he does is that he creates tracks for certain vocals or instruments.
Different pieces of the same track, I just put on different faders a lot of the time. And so like one fader I'll just be hard panned, and then it'll like go to the other fader, and like, as opposed to automation, it just is like easier for my brain. If I have like 3 tracks and it's like a left pan, right pan, and center, and I'm just like dragging pieces to those tracks, like it makes more sense to my brain than to like be drawing in like the curves and the straight lines.
It works. So once more, feeling comfortable with what you're doing is the most important thing. If it works and it sounds good, just go with it. So it's been quite a journey through FINNEAS process. I hope this information has been useful for you. I hope you can apply this to your production process or your songwriting process. I hope you learned something new. So before saying goodbye, and if you like my content, don't forget to subscribe right here. It's free. Also, don't forget to turn on the notifications so that you can know when I upload a new video. If you find this video useful, you can send it to a friend so that they can use this information as well. You can also follow me on my social media. I will leave the link in the description. That's all for today. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for being part of this community. If you want to ask me something, you can always do it in the comments below. So I'll see you in the next video. Have a nice week. Enjoy.